Hey, what's up, Joe? How you doing?
I'm doing real well. How about yourself?
Man, I'm doing better than I deserve. This has been a long time coming. A lot of talks at the coffee shop,
Yes.
a lot of hours together just talking about life and different things.
Right.
I know we've had some great phone calls in the past where I've got to peek into your world just a little bit through the law enforcement side of Joe. But we do mostly personal stuff. So this is a little bit different, a little bit awkward and weird sitting down with your buddy when you're in a professional sense. But I really love and appreciate the fact that the state allowed you to be here too in uniform. Yes. And then also that, I get to talk to you in your form of your professional life. So I do look forward to doing another talk when it's just me and you as dudes, as community guys. But right now, this is going to be more focused on your career, recruiting the new generation that's out there, what you're seeing, and some of what's going on in the drug scene with some of these drugs that are out there right now. And then on top of that, a big one is mental health in law enforcement. We've had some other hitters come on from our community, law enforcement guys, Chris Eilert and, Chip Westfall and other people who have been around and really support that community. And the big one for me is they all hit on mental health, which I really love to hear. I've actually had some special operations guys on. They've talked about mental health in ways that they just didn't used to in the past, because especially, you guys at your level and the things you have to deal with, it's just the average citizen does not understand the repetition that y'all go through, and the adrenaline rushes and the chemicals that just flow through your veins versus the average person that may deal with the situation once or twice in a lifetime. Some of you guys are encountering on a weekly basis.
Yes.
So anyways, for the people that don't know you, Joe, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, my name is Joe Owen. Like you said, I'm a trooper with the Kansas Highway Patrol. I guess technically my rank, my title would be a technical trooper, which means that I am a trooper equivalent to the rank of a master trooper in the Highway Patrol, but I have a specialty position that I focus on full time for my primary duties. And so my technical title is that I'm a technical trooper with the Highway Patrol.
Right on. Well, thank you for introducing yourself to us. So I want to understand, if I knew Joe as a kiddo, who were you, man?
Oh man, pretty rowdy.
Yeah.
Pretty rowdy. I think everybody would agree with that. Man, I love sports. I love the outdoors. I grew up hunting, fishing, playing ball, all the things everybody else did when they were kids. Had a lot of struggles in my childhood, growing up through my teen years, all that good stuff. A lot of personal tragedy, but just kind of persevered through that the best I could, the best way I knew how. And then here I am.
Here you are.
Today. Yeah.
So growing up, if I would have known you in high school, you're rowdy, hunting, all of that. Yep. What kind of group of guys did you hang out with? What did that look like?
Oh man, I hung around with the guys that liked to have fun, but didn't like to get real stupid.
Yeah.
I never drank alcohol in high school, never used drugs, I was a pretty good kid.
Yeah.
I was preacher's kid. So, everything that entailed, but I still like to have fun, so we would, one of my buddies had a motorcycle ride, and of course we're guys, we're macho, this, that, and the other. I had walked to school, so I would walk until I was out of view of my parents, and then he would pick me up. But, we're two teenage guys that are, real macho and everything. So I'd actually sit on the back of his motorcycle backwards, and he would give me a ride to school. So, just doing crazy stuff like that when we were kids. I do not condone that now.
Yeah. That's funny.
But you look back on those things like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
That kind of a thing.
So going into college, were you an athlete in college?
No.
Okay.
No, I was actually recruited to Southwestern College to play football, and some intra-college politics was going on at that time between the administration and the head football coach. And so there was actually 5 of us of the top recruits. We had all during two-a-days had, kind of solidified our starting spots for that year. And they called all 5 of us into the office on a Friday afternoon at 4:30 and said, by 5:00, we need a down payment of $5,000 or you have to vacate the dorms by Sunday. All of your scholarships are being pulled. And so, that was obviously, now I know it was a political thing inside the college to get that head football coach out, and it worked, because we all had to leave, and by the end of the season, he was gone. So I fell victim to that, but I just happened to fall right into. He knew somebody who worked at the Cali County Jail and got me a job.
So crazy how that works out.
Right.
So I knew within conversations we had, I knew that we never really got into that detail. So I knew there was something there that's kind of cool that you unpacked it. And now a few thousand people will hear about that one. So that's pretty cool. So, okay. So this is what drew you into the funnel of law enforcement. Is that fair to say?
Actually, I would say it started earlier than that.
Okay.
I had, my parents, my mom had actually been a nurse in a prison for years. And then about the time I was graduating high school, probably my junior and senior year, she was the chaplain at David L. Moss Correctional Facility in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was the Tulsa County Jail, but it was built and ran by a private corporation for a certain amount of time before it was turned back over to the county. So that's who she worked for. And after high school, in that kind of a break year, maybe you could call it, between then and coming up to Southwestern, I worked at the the Tulsa County Jail for a year. And so that was my start. My exposure started, back in my teen years. There's a pretty cool story that maybe we'll cover at a later date about how my mom had the opportunity to meet the guy that murdered my grandpa. And it was in that prison. So at any rate, I've had exposure to that for years before I ever actually stepped into the career.
Yeah. So stepping into the career, what were those steps? I know you do recruiting now, and you're looking at that next generation of law enforcement officers, and
right.
And can you talk to me about you coming in, how you viewed it, the processes you went through?
It was, you think you know what you know, right, before you step into this world. And then when you actually get that exposure, you didn't know anything. And so at Tulsa County Jail, they had everything from your drunk that's picked up every Saturday night, he's public talks out in the town, that kind of a thing, to very high profile federal prisoners who have murdered who knows how many people, and they're just awaiting their time to be shipped off to federal prison, and everything in between. And so it was a very, say, volatile environment in some cases. So to be kind of thrown into that world at 18 years old, thinking that you know a lot about it, but then actually stepping in there and you're the only person with 92 inmates, some of whom are very violent individuals, and you have to manage that pod and maintain the peace in that pod, it's very eye-opening.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like it. So in your world right now, I know you've had so many experiences, and some of them are really so hard. Actually, I just don't want to bring up one in particular that hit my mind last night when I was thinking about talking to you, and just some of what you have to deal with that people just do not understand when, we're all celebrating one of our fallen law enforcement officers that passed away on his personal time. But a lot of people don't know that, you were the individual that had to deal with some of that and the paperwork and walk yourself through that on somebody that's just so promising to our community in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Man, those things are tough.
Yes.
Can you kind of talk to me about and unpack for me how you guys deal with the repetition of those types of scenarios that you have to deal with on a weekly basis, sometimes daily basis, monthly basis?
Man, they are difficult for sure. And each one has its own challenges. Each one has its own difficulty. I have no problem. I don't know if you have any issue with mentioning Levi's name, but Levi Minkovich was fantastic. He was a bright, shining star in this community, especially in the law enforcement world. I think he probably could have been the bridge for a lot of people in this community to the Newton Police Department and even the Harvey County Sheriff's Office. And for the Highway Patrol, we would also benefit from that as well for those of us that work in this area. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Experienced a lot of those things that you're talking about with critical incidents and traumatic events himself.
Mm.
And I got to see him work through some of those things and still smile every day, you know. Just a great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy. I can remember not long before he died, we were actually on a barricaded subject call together, and he was trying to communicate with the individual who I think he had a knife or something like that, and had a couple people in the house, and he was trying to communicate with this individual. Never got belligerent with the guy, you know, always maintained his cool, was always using a calm voice, all the things you're supposed to do, you know, that you learn to do in training. He just did it naturally. And I was his cover. So he was on one side of the car giving we call it giving commands or, you know, basically communicating with the guy. And then I was his cover on the other side of the car, and we just worked well together. And it's just those kinds of things that happen on a daily basis. It didn't have to be a critical incident like that. Just having him walk up on my traffic stop to see if I needed anything was a comfort.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, just a great guy, man.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Levi.
Yes.
He was, I guess there was so many words you could use for an individual like that. And I would say authentic.
Yeah.
He was who he was all the time.
Yeah.
And people read and feel that from people.
Yeah.
And I do want to tell you, Joe, that people see that in you as well. That you are who you are. You don't pull any punches. You're straight and honest, but very forgiving and gracious. And we've had some incidents where you've had to call me to the carpet on a few things, and we've had some good conversations, never disrespectful, but always productive. And when I think back on Levi, and just the little bit I knew of him and the things that he was doing to support the community, and looking forward to, you know, him maybe even being involved with the football program and other things that he was passionate about, that kind of helped him build him to be the guy who he was. It's just a bright star gone too soon, but maybe we keep his memory alive by speaking about those great things that he did bring to the community, and the way he chose to care about people in their toughest times, and the little stories that you would hear about him even before, with how he would show favor and love and support to people that didn't have much. Because he really took it to the next level. And
he really did.
We were honored to have that guy around here.
He really did. And he was just a great example of, you know, how you can wear this uniform, you can operate in this capacity, but you can still be compassionate towards people. Right. Excellent role model for that. Even for somebody who, I was, by the time he came on, I was probably 12 years his senior in actual certified street law enforcement, at least 12 years his senior. And even I looked up to him.
Wow.
Because of the way he treated people on the street. And, man, what an example.
Absolutely.
What an example. And I could only hope that I could live up to even half of the example that Levi set while he was here. You know, just a great guy.
Cheers to him. You talked about compassion there as a law enforcement officer, and I was at an event. They were teaching people about fentanyl, and we were going over a Narcan training, and you were gracious enough to come in. And I think you were working probably or in between something, but you did come in, and you wanted to check the temperature, and you are involved, very involved in that world, and you know what's going on better than 99% of people out here. But there was a lady who was talking about, and she was kind of fumbling around about law enforcement not being compassionate. And I know that you made it a point to engage her and talk to her and show her who the other side of it, right? How often do you run into situations like that where you feel like people are bashing what you do, and people like Levi and people like yourself and the majority of the law enforcement officers that are out there that are trying their best to give favor to people that sometimes aren't being very nice?
Right.
How does that look for you? How often do you find yourself in that position?
Fairly often, especially in today's kind of cultural climate. Pretty often, you know, people only know what they're told. And then also kind of some certain experiences that maybe they've had where, let's say you did grow up in a neighborhood that wasn't so great. And so when the police came in there, they were dealing with a critical incident. So all you ever saw of a cop is when they are heightened and they are responding to a critical incident that needs to be handled in a certain way. There's no time to, address, well, how can I help you? And, what do you need from me? That kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. It is, you do this and you do this now. Mm-hmm. Get out of here before you get hurt or you get somebody else hurt, kind of a deal, right? Mm-hmm. Well, it makes the cop seem like a jerk, because that's the only encounters that you've had with them. Right. So you have to kind of see where people are coming from. Okay. So that specific individual, it's just what they were saying was not true, in that they were kind of insinuating, maybe they outright said, I don't remember exactly how the conversation went down, that we just don't care about people. Right. And so I just said, that's not true at all. And then I just sat down and I gave examples of, if I didn't care about people, this wouldn't have happened. If I didn't care about people, I wouldn't have done this. If I didn't care about people, I wouldn't have done that. If this individual over here, it's not just me. If this cop over here didn't care about people, they wouldn't have done this, right? So there are certain parameters that are spelled out in our job that we have to do, right?
Right.
And we don't have to do anything outside of that.
Right.
And so if we didn't care, we wouldn't do anything outside of that, So it's just kind of sitting down and having a face-to-face conversation with somebody that shows them a little bit of who you are on, under the vest, behind the badge, all that kind of stuff, who you are, not who the cop is, right? Just say, listen, I'm compassionate too. I don't like finding the abused kid that escaped from his abusive home, but the only information you have is that the kid is allegedly autistic and he's ran away from home and he's in danger, right? So you find this kid, you take him back to his parents only to learn or suspect because of your conversation that this kid isn't autistic, this kid is abused. But then the kid is too afraid to tell the truth, right? So you literally have to pick him up out of your patrol car, 8-year-old kid weighing 35 pounds, 40 pounds, and put that kid in his abuser's car and send him home. Nothing affects you more than that because you don't have the probable cause to make the case, right? To take the kid out of the home, to arrest the parent. But what do? Do you just let that go because, okay, this was my legally obligatory thing to do? Or do you say, okay, something else is going on here, so we're going to get to the bottom of this, right? And then so you to take it on your own or partner with people, which is what I had to do in that case. Say, hey, this is what I observed. This is what I experienced. This kid is abused. What can you do and how can I help to make sure that this kid is okay?
Yeah.
And that's what we did, right?
Yeah.
We took it upon ourselves to go make that case to get that kid and his sister out of that home.
Yeah.
That was a case in North Newton. And those parents were arrested for the abuse, right? So I could have said, I did my job. I'm going to go home. No, I did my job, but now I'm going to do my job. Now I'm going to fulfill my obligation to this kid to make sure that he's safe. And when you have compassion in every circumstance and you see every circumstance for what it is and you get involved and you make a difference in somebody's life, that's what the job is really about. Yeah.
Coming full circle on that conversation, we were sitting in a room. I knew you were there, grateful that you were there. You never know sometimes in those forums what types come in to check on things. And I know you have an eye for that too. You're very street smart. But there's a quote from Levi on the wall in that building. And it's a very compassionate quote about people, caring about people. And then this was being said as a blanket statement. And I was frustrated for you because I know you.
Yeah.
And I know where your heart's at. And I know how you love people.
Yeah.
To the point where it's uncomfortable because you are honest. And a lot of people don't like honest.
Right.
In the way that you're not trying to be ugly.
Right.
And you do know how to talk to people. You're very soft and you have skills there. And I don't know if it's from your training, your upbringing. I didn't know you were a PK till today, which is weird. And we're going to have some things to talk about later on that and my personal experiences with my grandfathers.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, I really appreciated that you engaged her and you made it a point to not ugly, not
Right.
threatening, but to show that, hey, I'm a human too.
Yep.
We love, the reason I do this is I love people. You could probably do a lot of things with your skill sets.
Right.
And the stress and the things that society is doing to you and your brothers in law enforcement and sisters is really tough. So I want to bring this full circle to me seeing that, me getting uncomfortable for you, you being in the room in uniform, knowing that Levi's name is on that wall in that room.
Right.
Knowing all of that stuff, and then you graciously engaging that conversation, hoping to God there was some seeds planted there, if not some shakes and some mind change or some heart change at that moment, because of narratives in the public, right?
Yeah.
So when you're recruiting today, if I'm a young 19, 20-year-old looking at you going, wow, you know, it's a service-oriented job. You get some leadership skills built into you. It's a process. It could be a great career if you commit to it.
Yeah.
But then I see something like that happen. That's going to make it harder for me to want to join up with you and be a part of your community.
Right.
What are the factors that are keeping you guys from getting the influx of people you used to get? Do you have data points on any of that?
So I kind of wondered that as well before I took over the recruiting role in February. But very quickly, I went to a few career fairs. I spoke to a few other recruiters, and basically it's almost all industry across the board that is having, I would say, extreme difficulty in recruiting and maintaining personnel levels, whether it's private corporation, government entity, law enforcement. Everybody is feeling that across the board.
Roger that.
So, I honestly, I don't know right now what that answer is, and I don't think anybody does. You know, if private industry had figured that out, we would know by now.
Correct.
And they haven't.
Correct.
You know, it seems like across the board, people are trying to throw money at the problem. And honest, let's face it, money's not the answer. You know, money's not the answer in law enforcement or government or private industry or anywhere. Money's not the answer. What the answer is culture. And so changing the culture, or maybe changing society's view of your internal culture in each industry might be the answer. But then the question is, how do you do that? It's a big question.
It's a major question.
Yeah, it's a big task.
Well, and I love that you humanized the whole thing, not just focused in on what you're doing, but you are a big picture guy. So you did go and look, are there any tools out there that somebody else is using I could borrow from?
Right.
And you didn't find it. You found similar, because I hear my buddies was in the Army, and he was helping bring guys into that outfit. And he's a dude, you know, he did all the stuff. He's got all the, he won't talk about a lot of stuff, but him and his dudes, when they're together, you can just tell it's a different group of guys.
It is. Yeah.
And they've been through a lot together, more than I could ever even imagine.
Right.
But they also have this bond because of that. It's just, you can feel it, you can see it, you can sense it, but I don't understand it. And I don't think I ever will.
Right.
And it's one of those things where my selfish side says, God forbid I will ever understand that because of what they did to earn that with each other.
Right.
Right. But even at that level where they're trying to bring in people to come into their family, which is not like a normal community group.
Right.
It's a very special group, and they protect it for a lot of reasons. They can't find guys and gals. Most of them, they're saying, don't even qualify physically.
Right.
The majority of them.
Right.
Where that was not an issue 15 years ago.
Yeah.
15 years.
Yep.
I mean, that's just wild.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And I was at a career fair, I think it was in Kansas City, and there were some National Guard units over there. And there was full-time military too. I went around to all their tables. I'm not afraid to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Went around to all their tables. I'll try to recruit them, and if somebody's walking up that says, "Hey, I'm looking for a career in in the military.
Mm-hmm.
I turned around and there's an 18-year-old kid walked up. Hey, I'm thinking about the military. I'm like, excellent. You know, you're 18 right now, so you have some gap years. Like, you wouldn't qualify for a career with the Highway Patrol right now, as far as a state trooper is concerned. But what if you came over here to the Army National Guard or to the U.S. Army for 4 years? You serve with them. You know, maybe they help you pay for some college, things like that, some education. And then after that, you've built some skill set. You know, you've gained some maturity. You gained some life experience. And then what if you look at a career with the Kansas Highway Patrol as a state trooper and put all of that you've kind of built up in your personal resume, put all that to use, continuing to serve the citizens of Kansas. And so that kind of threw off the military guys, right?
Yeah.
But we're all kind of fishing in the same pond right now. And it's not an individual. It cannot be an individual effort. You know, if I don't have something to offer this 18-year-old kid right now from my agency, if I have some tools where I can help them, you know, well, let's face it, at 18, I can help them kickstart their future, right?
Right.
I mean, they have no skill sets at that point, right? They just graduated high school. They might be in their first year of college. They have no life experience. So I can help them kickstart that if I can offer them a job myself. And so why wouldn't I do that? Because not only is it helping them to kickstart their future, but it's also, they're going to remember that. Like, hey, this guy didn't have something to offer me then, but he helped me find the next step that I needed. So let me go talk to this guy again. Now that I'm 21, 22, and maybe I'm ETSing out of the Army, or I'm exiting the military, or maybe I'm National Guard, maybe I finished school and now I'm looking for that next thing and I'm old enough. Let me go see what that guy has to offer. And so you have to, yes, I have to recruit today for people that are qualified today, but I also have to recruit for the future. And I just don't know that is being done enough across the board, is recruiting for the future and investing in the future. And so the Highway Patrol is doing a pretty good job of that with a couple programs that we have.
That's so good on so many levels. I feel like majority of industry is selling, well, let's just say selling against you guys, as 90% of the media out there selling against law enforcement in some way, shape, or form. Then they backpedal and they don't sell against law enforcement. They sell against, well, it wasn't law enforcement. It was the fact that we needed more mental health service types of law enforcement officers, or we needed to give them that specific tool belt that we didn't expect them to need because society has changed, and it has. But then what's the balance of that? So we're not even gonna, now we're not talking about not investing in that. We're gonna invest more now that we realize we just need to add more at it, but they're putting more on the plate of the officer every day, just like teachers, right? That's another industry that I'm real close to right now. And I've had an interesting experience being in that world and trying to understand the inside of it and the culture in that system. Yeah. But it's real similar. It transfers, right? When you're looking at these bigger, but it's the doom and gloom message. And if you want to get even on some of the campaigning that's going on in the political hemisphere that's out there, people are selling this doom and gloom. But when I go back to the core people that we've respected over the years that's helped us build this amazing country that we have, they sold vision and opportunity forward. Yeah. And I don't feel like, and what you just did is you sold vision to an Army guy going in the Army. Hey, we can both win here. Let me help you get this kiddo in for 4 years, give him some structure, some foundation, some tools, and one of the best systems in the world. Sure. And then we can transfer them into the, the state. Yeah. Coming in at a level where they have a lot of these foundational things. They understand what it's going to take. It'll be more of the same, just different detail and different focus. Right. But we've got them trained up, and you're giving them more of you're selling a vision. Yeah. And that's the thing I love about what you do naturally. And I don't know if that comes from your upbringing, if that's an instinct that you have. But when we talk, that's the thing I love about our conversations is we can talk about the nitty gritty, but you always go forward with the vision. I mean, you stopped me one day, and I was going through some stuff. just trying to figure out some people stuff and some community stuff and really just racking my brain. And you had some words for me that were just settling, and it calmed my spirit, frankly, but it was forward thinking.
Right.
And I really needed that because I was caught in the here and now and in feelings that just weren't going to last.
Right.
And it's easy to make big decisions on those feelings right here and right now and start a trend that you start justifying.
Yes.
Because you've already started moving in a direction. You're almost embarrassed to backtrack.
Right.
At least that's me. I don't know about everybody else.
Right.
But I try to catch myself before I start down those paths. So I take more time to sit in things than I used to.
Yeah.
And when you did that, it just calmed my spirit, and it gave me that bigger vision of the things my mom had told me in the past, the things my grandfather had told, some of my coaches that I've had in the past. When I was after a lost game, they would come to me and give me this little tug, and it was always about moving forward.
Sure.
It was always about the plan that's inside of me that I'm supposed to help unfold. Right. It's not about me. There's a bigger picture out there. It's about us. It's about we. Right. And you do a good job at that. In your recruiting, are you finding that helpful? Are you setting, I know you're still planting seeds and stuff, but are you setting a track to be able to tell that story differently for the state troopers out there?
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm only 3 months into this
right
now. I was just thinking about that this morning. It's like, wow, it's been 3 months, and then on the other side, it's only been 3 months, So our recruiting program had essentially laid dormant since the beginning of COVID because of what COVID is or was.
Right.
So, it's almost like starting from ground level. So there is a little bit of, hey, we've done this in the past. How did it work out? Is it something that was beneficial, or can we just not waste time on trying that again and move on to something else? There's a little bit of that, but a lot of it is casting vision for the future and building programs that's going to help the Highway Patrol recruiting office for the future. Yes, we're recruiting for right now. Yes, we, like everybody else, are hurting for people right now. But we also need to see, right now, I'm taking applications for classes that are in 2024 and 2025, right? Or that's the people I'm looking for right now. And that's my short-term recruiting, right? So my longer term, my midterm recruiting, I guess we can call it that, is like 3 to 5 years down the road. These are people that are like juniors and seniors in high school that we're trying to kind of get their attention and get them to start thinking about their future. Because they're 16, 17 years old. Are they thinking about their future, or are they thinking about, dude, my future is that I'm going to go pro. Everybody's going to go pro, right?
Right.
And really less than 1% probably go pro.
Absolutely.
And so why don't you go pro, but why don't you go pro in something else, right? And so we try to get them looking to the future that's a reality without trying to push any kind of, agendas on them or frame their mindset a certain direction. You want them to have an open mind and be free thinking and be able to make decisions for themselves. So what do? You equip them to do that, right? And you get them to just ask questions that gets them to start thinking about and opening up. You know what? Actually, that's a pretty cool avenue. I hadn't thought about that before. You don't try to force it on them, right?
Right.
You just ask the questions that get them to start thinking that. And then maybe even start giving them a little bit of tools to be able to make that decision when it comes time. You have to start looking to the future, and just like I'm recruiting for the future, I have to also give those potential recruits, right? I have to give them tools to make that decision. Yeah. So in those conversations, I try to steer them towards, especially most of the people I talk to are high schoolers or first or second year college students. You have to get them to start looking towards the future. So just having those visionary type conversations is what you got to do.
That's so powerful. Without a vision, the people perish, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of our organizations, including some of the ones I'm a part of, I'm coming to that very basic fundamental that we all know, but somehow I feel like it's gotten lost across industry and systems and businesses, where we're really here and now, put out these fires, what's in front of us, what's next week bring, what's next hour bring.
Right.
Instead of sitting back and parking the car and looking in the rear view mirror, looking out your windshield, looking to the left and the right of you, and then figuring, okay, How am I going to get to where I need to get to now? Take out a map and chart a course,
Right.
and then plant that vision in your head.
Yeah.
Because right now we're turning down every which street trying to get somewhere without much direction because of the culture of COVID and some of these things that have happened with the drugs that are on the illicit drugs and the combinations of drugs that are being introduced to our systems and our kiddos and our communities that most people even consuming them really don't even know the full validity of it yet. They're just, in that culture and in that world for the time being, but some of them won't get out of it because of what that's doing to people.
Right.
And these distributors and drug dealers and these corporations that are doing this, they know what they're doing. It's just like a social media company with kids and what they know they're doing to kids' brains. They're just doing it with drugs.
Yeah.
And those are chemicals that they're using. But anyways, I want to segue and kind of go down this road of mental health and law enforcement, talking about vision and future. We know that mental health is a bigger issue than it's ever been for a lot of reasons. And I don't think social media has helped that at all on any level.
Yeah.
We're less kneecap to kneecap like we are here.
Right.
We are more quick reactionary and marketing schemas, and our consumerism mindset has got us to where we want everything microwaved, right?
Yes.
But, casting big visions takes time. It takes effort. It takes trial and error, and then resetting. Mental health has been on your guys' radar. Would you say for the last 10 years that it's really spun up?
Yes. It's been probably 10 to 12 years with the highway patrol. When you have some folks take their own life, and whether it was personal conflict at home or because of trauma that they experienced while they were on the job, either way, a loss is a loss. And anytime somebody takes their own life, yes, it's a personal loss, like we lost a friend or we lost a coworker, but it's a big L in the game of life, right? It's
Absolutely.
out of the wins and losses, it's a major loss. Because how many times did we fail to intervene on whatever level?
Right.
Whether even it was just saying, hey man, I just noticed that, you're kind of down or you're kind of struggling in this way. What's going on? Don't ask are you okay? And just give them the easy out of saying, yeah. Say, hey, this is what I've noticed. And basically I'm here to help you. You're showing I've noticed this. So they're like, oh, okay, this person's paying attention. What's going on? Make them explain it to you.
Yeah.
Don't give them the easy out.
Yeah.
So we've failed. I think it's a good way to put it. We've failed on a lot of levels on that.
Wow.
And we've recognized that. And so with the highway patrol, we have a peer support team. So we have a group of people that are I say specially trained. It's not like special forces or something. I mean, we just make a point to be trained in crisis intervention, personal crisis intervention, in trauma response. So let's say somebody has a critical incident. It's critical incident stress debriefing, and critical incident stress management is actually what it's called. So we're trained in facilitating, let's say, group conversations of a group of responders that were involved in this specific event, and just let everybody come together and kind of tell their story in regard to that event, and then move into, okay, so what personal changes and personal experience have you noticed in yourself? What has your spouse noticed in you since that event? Right.
Yeah.
And we start, and it's not like we're sitting there diagnosing somebody. I'm not a clinical psychologist or anything like that.
Right.
But it's just getting them to recognize, oh shoot, I'm different after that event.
Yeah.
This is how I'm different. It's either good or bad.
Yeah.
If it's good, cool, go with it. Right. If it's bad, we need to cut this off right here.
Right.
And that's the loss that we've had in the past, in recognizing those moments when somebody is having a negative reaction to a high trauma event, and then just letting them continue down that path.
Right on.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to stop that.
That's awesome. Well, there's so many great things that I want to cover with you, but some of the things that are hitting me right now are on our personal level. So I will wait till our next time together, because there are some things I want to unpack with you. I think we have a lot of the same views, of course not all, but a lot of the same views on certain things that I would like to talk about. Some of them are trigger words that we hear in society with trauma informed, and then you put it into different groups, and then it starts getting used differently.
Right.
And then people push a word like that down just as a trigger word.
Yeah.
Because of how it's being used in some circles and in some organizations out there that we could all name. But we should be very careful on how people are using that word and where it's being used, because that in your world is very important. And it's not a pansy word. It's not a Marxist word or whatever these things people want to talk about, because there's a true sense of being informed about trauma that you guys have to go through. I want to back this up to a training. And I asked you a question one time, and it was a crazy answer that I would have never guessed. And I don't
even know where this is going.
This question was, why do you guys put your thumb when you go up to a traffic stop?
Oh.
Why do you guys put your thumb
Sure.
like the way you do that? What is that about?
Oh yeah. That's not about. So one thing that we do is check a safety thing on the back of the vehicle, which I won't name it here.
Yeah.
But there's a safety thing that you need to check just to kind of guard against ambush and things like that, right?
Right.
And then another thing is to put a fingerprint, a handprint, something on that vehicle, and just so there's some evidence there. Let's say if maybe the tag is covered or is somehow not visible, and you walk up to that car. I've literally talked to a guy who walked up to the side of the car and bent down to say, "Hey, good afternoon," and got shot in the face.
Yeah.
And so he's laying in the ditch while this car just speeds off, right? So then we can tie, okay, that car was at this specific location at this specific time when that officer put his hand on the back of that car.
Right.
Right.
So that right there. So I'm going to hold you there.
Okay.
And your world.
Yeah.
Multiple times a day, depending on what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And your brothers and sisters that are out there in law enforcement, to the average person, that's one piece of so many things you have to do.
Yeah.
To protect you, the team, the case, the evidence-based backgrounds from experience is why you do it.
Right.
But to you, it's just a formality of doing your job.
Yeah. Right.
To somebody else that doesn't have to walk your shoes every day, that is wild. Just so your team and your people know how much, my company and what we do here, we want to talk about those things and make it okay to put resources in. We need to push our state. We need to push our representatives, and they're doing better, and they're going to do a better job. I know two of the ones that we have here locally. I've had this conversation with them about mental health and the things that we're doing and how we're changing that up for the future. And it is a real conversation that we need to get down and dirty for, especially to the people providing services for us.
Yeah.
Because of what you endure and what you take home for us every day, and some of your families deal with, and I think all at some level, but I know it's different. People are different in different situations, hit different people different.
Yes.
And we don't know what those triggers are for each individual because we're fingerprints. We're different.
Right.
We all take different situations differently, and those foundations and roots of problems can go way back to our childhood.
Oh, 100%.
And we don't even realize that it stirred something up that was buried for a reason. But we can't sit there and say that you're going to handle the same thing the same way I would in whatever situation, A, B, or C.
Right.
All that to be said is that one situation, when I saw that and I came to you and I was, Joe, what do you do this for? And you told me exactly that. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I have some friends that are officers as well for Newton PD. and what I've seen them endure and the things that they've had to go through, where most people just, oh, he's a cop.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
Much respect. Thank you guys for what you do. We all have bad apples in the cart, but the majority
Sure.
of you guys are unbelievable. And I feel like in our area, at least, we can't do, and there's things that happen and we get bombarded with these messages and people think it's happening in our own backyard. Are there incidences and things that have happened in the past? Yes. But I feel like this group in our area has figured out and are weeding out bad apples at a rate that I just never seen before watching it. And it's like, you guys are now protecting that culture we talked about earlier.
Right.
And I feel it. I see it. I've seen examples of it. It's like, wow, to get in, to be a part of this team now is not what it was 10, 15 years ago.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. And thank you for protecting that and building that culture and keeping each other accountable and weeding out those things that need to be weeded out quicker. Because there's always going to be stuff that comes through. I just feel like the filters got refined.
I see.
And I hear it with people that I know that have been in and out of jail and have had problems with law enforcement in the past. And I see how you guys are handling certain people differently. And you're humanizing them. And it's happening on all levels.
Right.
From the sheriff's office to our city PD, to you guys out at the state level in our area rolling around.
Right.
And I just wanted to say that I see the effort. I want to say thank you for that. I know you're a part of that. I really like what I'm seeing, and I love the temperature that's come down here recently when other places are having it being ignited and kind of sparked.
Right.
We've calmed the coals here.
Right.
And I think I just want you to know that the group of people that I'm around in my silos are very appreciative of what you do. And so that being said, I want to leave one last word for you to the community, to the kiddos out there and young men and women that maybe want to come on and look at what you do for a career. How do they contact you? What could that look like? What message do you have for them? And what do you have for the community?
Sure. Yeah. So anybody that's interested in what careers the Highway Patrol has to offer, they could go to khpjobs.org.
Okay.
And all of our options, civilian options, state trooper, Capitol Police, all of our venues that we have job openings are on that website.
Okay.
And then I think I'm on the main page is my contact info as the recruiter, email, phone, all that good stuff.
And for the audience, I'll post those underneath. So if you guys go to the YouTube or the Facebook post where you'll see these clips, I'll make sure I post that. So just go in there, click those links. It'll lead to Joe and lead to that website, so you guys can go and scan that and look for yourself.
Sure, that's great. Yeah, on that website is all of our job openings. But for high schoolers and college students, we do a cadet law for high schoolers that is sponsored through the American Legion, and that's actually next week, I think. And collegiate law, that is sponsored by the Highway Patrol, but you have to have a criminal justice program sponsor from your school to get into that. And so it's basically an inside look at the Highway Patrol. It's based off of our Recruit Academy, but it's very light. So, they're like, they get up at 5:30 every morning and they go to physical training just like our recruits do. And, they go to class, but they get to go drive our cars on our emergency vehicle operation course. They get to go out to our firearms range and shoot some of the guns that we use and all that good stuff, defensive tactics, all the fun stuff that we get to do in training. They get exposed to that. And then they get brief overviews of all of our units and departments within our agency as well, just to know what it's about. What do we experience during training and what is this agency about? So those are pretty good opportunities for college and high school students to learn about the Highway Patrol. Nice. And then, so for any citizen that's maybe they're not in school, but maybe they're interested in a career with the Highway Patrol or interested in what we do, we also have a ride-along program that they could qualify for, and they could contact me through the same means, and I can kind of explain that and get them kind of set up for that if that's something they're interested in.
So, can you guarantee that they won't be on a 100-mile-an-hour chase, or that maybe they will?
I can say I can say that as far as a vehicle pursuit with a citizen in the car, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Dang it.
are you going to go over 100 miles an hour catching a speeder? Probably.
As he turned back on to get him.
Yeah. Right.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And man, that's interesting. I need to do that sometime. I think, well, don't we have that with Newton PD? I've never done that.
Especially, with your position in the community and everything and the things that you do.
With our guys go
I
through.
really think you should go right along with Newton PD and the sheriff's office. I mean, I think with your position on the school board, you kind of hit both of those worlds, right?
Yeah.
Both of those communities. Yeah. So, yeah, I would say.
Curious what they would say about that. I'm going to check. I don't want to put more work on them, but man, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. It's a little more work in that it is you as the officer that the civilian is riding along. It's your responsibility to kind of make sure that they're safe, right? But then also you have a talk with that person before they ever go on a ride along and say, hey, listen, this job by its nature can expose you to, a little bit of danger that the normal citizen doesn't get exposed to. So you just know that, and they're either okay with it or they're not. And then you just go for it.
To my point, you guys do know some of your days are pretty crazy.
Ah, come on now.
Compared to, it's so wild to me. I mean, it really is. Real quick, while we end, and thank you for your time. One of my buddies I go to church with, he's a police officer. Great dude, real quiet, observant, great dude. I come out of Walmart, and there's a guy, and he's twacked out, 100% sure. I mean, he's just geeking all over the place.
Yeah.
He's twacked out hard.
Yeah.
And he's coming, and I'm watching his body language. He is just all over. He stops, and he starts kind of almost hightailing, almost jog speed walking back to his truck. Well, 2 police officers pull up.
Yeah.
Get out of the car. Real calm and cool.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them was my buddy. And I almost called him by name, but then I thought, oh, wait a minute, there's something. I mean, it took me, because yay.
Yeah.
And he was in mode.
Yep.
And so he's walking over there, and this guy opens his door, reaches in his truck, and I'm watching all this unfold in a busy parking lot. People are just walking by like nothing's happening.
Right.
I see this guy at church the next day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, I saw you yesterday in the parking lot, and I almost wanted to say hi so bad, but I just wanted to tell you thank you for what you do every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because for somebody reaching in a truck that is twacked out,
yeah,
that's in the middle of God knows how many days he's been up, probably iced out.
Yeah.
And he reaches in his truck,
mm-hmm.
and his body language was not okay. And the way they handled that,
mm-hmm.
where there was no incident,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I watched for about a minute and a half, but they got it to the point where I knew everybody was going to be safe because they were doing what they do, you know, within reason, and
right.
But they had calmed it, and they were listening. You could tell they were doing their thing, and I just left because that wasn't my business. But they were there taking care of it. Yeah. That one incident got my adrenaline going.
Oh yeah. Right.
And I'm thinking he just came from another call.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were to hear the call that he came from before that, that's where it gets sketchy.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
You draw on experiences from the past to help you with what you're working right now, right? The past could have been 10 minutes ago, right? So I can't even tell you, man. The first DUI I ever arrested, and this probably why my career has gone the way it is. And the first DUI I ever arrested tried to kill me twice, and and that guy got cuffed up and he got took to jail like he should have been.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to kill me once on the highway. When he came into my lane, I had to go into the ditch to avoid getting hit head on, right? And then I go and stop him. I do all the roadside investigation. You've seen it on, you've seen it on cops before.
Yeah.
I did all of that, and I tell the guy, hey, I have to place you under arrest for driving under the influence. And just the way we had parked and where we had to do the testing was right beside his truck in a parking lot in a gas station, right? And at the same time he pops his door, because we were just right there, he says, I got a 357, says I ain't, and reaches under the seat of his truck.
Oh.
So what happens then? So that's when your training kicks in. That's when all of these things that you've been taught, and why training is so crucial, and why mentality is so crucial, right? Just talking about mental health, you cannot ever go into a victim state while you're on a call, right? If you go into a victim state while you're on a call, especially right then, it wouldn't have ended well, either for me or for that man or for both, right? But my training kicks in and my mentality and my state of mind was correct. And he might have been banged up a little bit, but I mean, if you're going to pull a gun on a cop, you're probably going to get banged up a little bit. But he went to jail that night. You know, he's alive, I'm alive. And in a month, when his case is settled, or 6 months or whatever it was, and he was in his right frame of mind because now he's not under the influence, he was able to get his firearm back, you know, and all this kind of stuff. But you just have to be ready. And part of that, you mentioned touching the back of the car on the way up. There's debate on whether or not that actually leaves enough of a handprint to identify all this kind of stuff. But for me, and for people who are trained that way, no matter what's gone on in the 10 minutes before this encounter, it flips a switch, right? Your switch should be flipped when you turn the lights on.
Right.
When you decide I need to take action here is when it should be flipped. But if it hasn't, that's your last chance to come into reality that I'm going into this unknown situation, and whatever happens here, I need to be ready for. 99.5% of the time, what happens is you contact the citizen. You say, hey, this is who I am. This is why I stopped you. You get their identifiers. You go back to your car. You write the warning or the ticket, whatever you're doing. You take it back up to them, and they drive on down the road.
Yeah.
But for the, less than 1%.
Yeah.
Far less than 1% of the time, things could go south, right? And you have to be ready for that.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people ask why the Highway Patrol Training Academy is 24 weeks where KLATC is 14 weeks. Having our own academy, we have the opportunity to go more in depth into, daily operations of the Highway Patrol as compared to anywhere else, but also into officer survival training. We have the best officer survival training in the state. I've been through KLATC, so I can speak to that. We have the best officer survival training in the state, and that's the difference in the two training academies. Is when you leave the Highway Patrol Training Academy, you are 100% trained and ready to respond to basically anything that you're going to encounter. Our field training process is an observation period for a senior trooper to be able to observe you operating out there in the public with the skills that you've been taught and developed in the training academy, right? Now, their job is to also intervene in any, if maybe, I don't know, if there's an officer survival issue there where maybe, I don't know, you turn your back on a person that you shouldn't have or something like that. They make those little corrections in the field. But by and large, when you leave our academy, you're able to operate on your own already. But we still have that obligatory observation period, right?
Right.
So whereas KLATC, they have to answer to every police chief and sheriff in the state. And so if they go a little harder down this training path and then people start to quit, because it's difficult, well, now they have to answer to all these people, right? So, that's kind of the difference in the two academies.
Yeah.
You leave KLATC basically trained, and you leave the Kansas Highway Patrol Academy intermediately trained. So
Got it.
That's kind of a good comparison. So
right on.
Yeah, our people are ready.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for what you do. It was a pleasure talking to you as always. And I'm looking forward to us doing one as just dudes, as friends and community guys.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate the state for allowing us to do this conversation officially.
Sure.
We'll put those links that you talked about down below. And Joe, I look forward to the next one, man.
All right. Thanks.
Yep. Have a great one.
You too.
Yep.